Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People Story. It was the time of year my wife and I cherished the most, our annual trip to our native town in India. The vibrant flavors of the cuisine and the joy of reuniting with our families made the mundane taste of our everyday lives seem distant. This year, however, there was an added layer of anticipation. My wife had recently received an exciting job opportunity back home, and we were eager to explore the possibilities that awaited her. In the back of my mind, a shadow loomed, casting a slight disappointment over our journey. Our neighbor Derek and his troublesome family had caused us nothing but misery over the past 2 decades. From the moment we moved into our new house, it was clear that Derek and his wife Carla were despised by the entire neighborhood, and it didn't take long for us to discover why. Derek's behavior knew no bounds. Trash bags would mysteriously find their way over our shared fence, and when confronted, he would dismiss our concerns, insisting that it was technically his property and not littering. His son, Alan, had grown into an equally unpleasant individual, his loud and violent nature preventing him from leading a stable life outside his parents' home. Carla, on the other hand, relished in spreading baseless rumors about the neighbors. She perched herself on the porch, spying on everyone, denying any semblance of privacy. And then there was Derek, the embodiment of entitlement and a catalyst for disunity. His confrontational and short-tempered nature disrupted any gathering, rendering our attempts at forming a tight-knit community futile. Eventually, we all resigned ourselves to the notion that it was easier to avoid Derek's wrath than to come together. Our month-long vacation came to an end, and with mixed emotions we returned home, ready to embrace the opportunities that awaited us. Little did we know that a tempest was brewing in our absence. As we arrived, a gaping hole greeted us on our front lawn, construction workers diligently lining it with cement. My anger surged, and I rushed to confront them, only to be informed that they were hired by the landowner Derek. He claimed the land was his, and that he was building a pool, even though I had never consented to such an endeavor. In a fit of rage, I stormed toward Derek's house, but my wife's wisdom prevailed, urging me to involve the authorities. It was clear that reasoning with Derek was a futile endeavor. As we spoke with the workers, brandishing the keys that unlocked our house, they realized the truth and halted their work until the matter could be resolved. They had been paid in full, confident in Derek's claim over our front yard. The police were as perplexed as we were, acknowledging the unprecedented nature of the situation. They dispatched officers to assess the scene and confront Derek while advising us to consult a lawyer. My sister-in-law, Aya, a brilliant attorney, provided guidance on our legal options. However, Derek's audacity knew no bounds, and he appeared at our door, seething with anger. He adamantly claimed adverse possession, asserting that the fence, which he believed was his, had resided on my property for over a decade, granting him ownership rights. Before the confrontation escalated, the arrival of the police forced Derek to retreat, knowing he would have to address his claims in court. I sought solace in Aya's counsel, who assured me that Derek's case was weak, since we had not left the property completely unused during the alleged 12-year duration. Still, the risk remained that he could claim ownership over the portion with the pool if his legal representation proved formidable. Our only recourse was to sue him, seeking the removal of the pool and obtaining a restraining order. Our legal battle ensued, and with a superior legal team, justice prevailed in due course. Derek's fury at losing the case was palpable, his resentment barely concealed. However, little did he know that his actions would lead to his ultimate downfall. In the dead of night following the court hearing, Derek, accompanied by Alan, brazenly broke into our home, guns brandished with malicious intent. The chilling threat hung in the air as they demanded that we allow them to finish the pool and use it as they pleased. Shocked and frightened, my wife reluctantly agreed to their terms, hoping that compliance would ensure our safety. Unbeknownst to them, she had captured the entire incident on her phone, meticulously documenting Derek's threats, property damage, and violation of the restraining order. As they departed, smirks of satisfaction dancing on their faces, my wife revealed the evidence she had gathered. We wasted no time contacting the police, ensuring Derek and Alan's swift apprehension. The weight of relief settled over our neighborhood as news spread that Derek's reign of terror had come to an end. No longer would we suffer his needless fights and restrictive presence. Best of all, I would now have my pool, paid for in full by Derek's ill-conceived scheme. To celebrate our newfound freedom from Derek's clutches, we invited the neighbors for a joyous pool party, where laughter and merriment drowned out the echoes of the past. This time we could revel in the company of our community, knowing that the threat of Derek's intrusion was forever vanquished. As the sun set over our tranquil oasis, a sense of serenity settled upon us, reminding us that resilience and unity could triumph over even the most menacing of neighbors. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I started renting a house about 5 years ago. I had always lived in apartments, and I was excited to finally have some space and privacy. However, this was ruined within the first week by my obnoxious neighbor, making my 4 years at that house miserable. He's in his late 40s or early 50s, and despite seeming like a fully functional adult, he has never lived outside of his parents' home. He spends every possible minute cleaning or admiring his truck, practically living in the driveway. When he isn't bragging about some offensive move he just pulled on someone, he is hitting on the wives and daughters of anyone on the street. I moved in during the winter and started noticing footprints in my yard in the morning. I found out that he was walking into my yard to look in my windows and see what I was watching or playing at night. To stop this invasion of privacy, I bought a simple security system and installed a few cameras. His nosiness stopped, but then he started mowing my side yard. He would mow it the day after I did. I asked my landlord about this and was told that Mike, the creepy neighbor, considered it his property and kept arguing about the property line. Since it was just grass, I decided to let it go. Whenever I had guests over, he would stare at them and sometimes make comments when I wasn't around to hear him. If I was in the backyard, he would find a reason to be in his backyard. If I was in the house or the front yard, he would position himself in his driveway, peering into my living room. Even when I was mowing the yard, he would fetch a lawn chair and sit there, watching intently. The situation escalated when I caught him sending his dog into my front yard one morning, instead of letting it out into his fenced-in backyard as usual. I confronted him, telling him to stay on his side of the property line, and he responded by threatening to break into my house, smash my cameras, and destroy my computer. I immediately called the police and he received a warning. Last fall, I informed my landlord that I intended to move out. During our conversation, I discovered that Mike was on workers' compensation for an injury he allegedly sustained at work. He was now boasting about using his workers' comp checks to establish his own under-the-table landscaping business. My landlord, like most of the neighborhood, didn't particularly care for Mike. The landlord's son and his family lived across the street, and Mike had hit on the wife a few times over the years. He had even started trying to engage their 17-year-old daughter in conversation. I waited for a day when he had his new work truck and trailer, displaying his name and number on the door. I recorded a video of him working on his yard, hauling 50 bags of mulch and climbing ladders. I captured both videos and photos, which I then forwarded to the fraud department of the Workers' Compensation Office. Today, I learned that he was found guilty of fraud, ordered to repay every dollar, and may even face jail time. I am now happily residing in a new place with a significant amount of land separating me from my neighbors. The next one is a petty revenge story. We live in a new and small apartment complex, only 40 units within 2 buildings. It's very low-key and within walking distance of our downtown. It's very affordable for how convenient a location it is. Back in September, we noticed the vacant unit beside us was being moved into by a new tenant with furniture, decor, etc. One weekend, not long after moving in, we heard what sounded like a little party with music and loud voices well past midnight. We heard a lot of people coming in and out of the front door, but letting the door slam each time, shaking the walls. Maybe they were having a housewarming party or a friend's get-together at the new place. So we brushed it under the rug as a one-off incident. For the next few weeks, we noticed a variety of people coming in and out of this apartment, and none of them seemed to be the same individuals. Parking also started to become much busier than usual, and the cars kept changing. So something seemed off. My girlfriend started working the night shift for her job not long after the neighboring apartment became occupied. She is a light sleeper and noticed that throughout the morning before going to work, the neighbor's door was always slamming and shaking the walls. She understands that people are active during the day and she can't ask people to cater to her night shift needs. But she felt the constant slamming of doors was not only disruptive but unusual behavior. One particular morning was the straw that broke the camel's back. She had finally had enough because of the effect it was having on her sleep. She wanted to see who was slamming the door. She heard the door slamming around 10:30 a.m., got up and witnessed people walking to their car with suitcases and leaving. Soon after, a man arrived and pulled up the front doormat, retrieved a key, and let two women with cleaning supplies into the apartment. Each time they entered or left, the door would slam and shake the wall. Seeing this, she searched Airbnb and almost immediately found the rental unit next door. Same floor plans, wall paint, flooring, etc. To our surprise and anger, we found a total of 4 listings in our apartment complex alone on the host's profile. That is 10% of the apartments in our buildings. Through the listings, we found the individual's LinkedIn and business website. On his website, he claims that he does something called rental arbitrage. Essentially, this is renting out a long-term rental on a short-term basis, lease an apartment, and rent it on Airbnb for profit. This can be done legally with the landlord's permission. The lease agreement does not allow for subletting or short-term rentals. They were renting out 3 of the 4 ground-end units offered, units with unique floor plans. The 4th unit was a handicap-accessible unit. That's right. This man and his business partner leased an apartment meant for accommodating people with disabilities with the intention of using it for his little short-term business empire he was trying to build. Our city and region, like in other places, have been feeling the squeeze on apartment availability, and these individuals are contributing to the problem. It was at this point we took this personally, as we had our own problems dealing with apartment availability, wait lists, disappointment, and frustration. My girlfriend called the leasing office and notified them that the neighboring unit is being rented out on Airbnb and asked if that was allowed, to which the office gave an emphatic, "Absolutely not," and asked for the listings to be sent to them in an email. Later that day, the office called her back and said they notified the tenant that they will be inspecting the apartments the following afternoon. After the inspection was completed, the office notified us that they had sent a cease and desist document of any rental activities outside the lease agreement or face eviction. They also informed us that you should not have any more problems concerning the matter, and if you do, don't hesitate to give us a call. Now, this individual has 4 leases he is stuck paying $1,500 a month for and can't make any more money on through Airbnb. He is bleeding money at the tune of about $6,000 a month. His only legal options are to continue paying for them or to break the leases and vacate. Last week, we watched as movers emptied out the apartments. I'm sure they lost deposits and/or were penalized for breaking the leases. A very expensive lesson for being a greedy entrepreneur. Don't be individuals like them, folks. Also, don't piss off a night shifter trying to sleep. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I used to work for a big IT consulting company notorious for not paying overtime. I worked for a client's migration project for almost 1.5 years, leading the functional migration team. The 3 of us had worked for the client for 3 years before the start of the migration project, so we knew the data we had to migrate, along with all the nuances. 2 weeks before the migration date, 99% of the data had already been migrated and validated. During those last 2 weeks, we only handled the day-to-day new data and took it easy. Another manager who outranked me became extremely angry about our calmness because the part she led was behind schedule, due to poor scheduling, and everyone was overworked as a result of her mishaps. On the migration date, Saturday starting at 9 a.m., everyone was expecting long hours of work. However, we finished and validated the data by noon, with the client's approval. My team received a written commendation from the client. The manager's team, on the other hand, spent the entire weekend there. She received a complaint letter from the client. The manager complained about us and made me and my senior analyst spend the next month waiting for incidents, bugs, or complaints. In the whole month, we received only 5. My senior analyst spent 8 hours a day studying a new language, and I took the opportunity to update my CV because I wanted to leave. Additionally, I helped a couple of former colleagues who needed assistance in resolving bugs and problems within the manager's team responsibilities. A couple of weeks later, it was evaluation time. At the IT company, everyone was graded from A to D, or A was exceeding expectations, D was you're out of here, B was good, and C was essentially, I'm starting to think you might not be good to work here. Considering the commendation from the client, I was expecting an A. However, my evaluation was done by the manager and my mentor. who was a close friend of the manager. They gave me a C, stating that we didn't see any pressure in your work and you certainly lack motivation. I complained and took a long overdue, already planned month-long vacation. This was in June. After returning to work, I was assigned to a project with another client led by the manager's husband. He wanted me to prepare 122 integrations with different systems within 4 months. I informed him that in the previous project led by his wife, they took 2 years to have 12 integrations ready. However, I agreed to give it a shot and even emailed him the planning where it clearly showed the time they took. 2 of those months were July and August, when most people at the client's office were on holiday. The manager and his wife also went on holiday for most of August. During those 2 months, I spent my time chasing people around the client's office. But starting in September, 6 integrations were closed, and 6 more were almost closed pending validation. When the manager returned from holidays, he was furious. He called me a slacker and started telling me that his wife was right, that I lacked motivation, and that I would need to work until midnight for the rest of the project duration to make up for lost time. I firmly replied, "No, I won't work a minute more than what you're paying for. I told you that your expectations were unrealistic, but you went ahead with them anyway." He went ballistic, and I responded, "I simply lack motivation to work on your project. I want out of the project." I was removed from the project in no time. Later, I received a call from my mentor who informed me that they were considering firing me without pay because of this incident. I explained the unrealistic planning to her, but she insisted that I was being unrealistic and that the planning was good. To prove my point, I produced the email I sent to the manager. My mentor went silent. After a minute, she asked me, "What do you want? If you can't guarantee that I won't have to work a single minute of overtime ever again, then I want to leave. I expect full severance pay and more, and I want the company to make it seem like I resigned rather than being fired." Once again, my mentor fell silent. She said she would see what she could do. By the end of the day, I left the company with a smile on my face. The next one is an entitled People Story, a little description of what I do for a living. I basically renovate and/or paint rentals so people can move in and mess them up again, and sometimes I have to do this while they're occupied. So I'm going to have several stories to post here. Management companies for most rental properties will use cheap stock cabinets from their suppliers, but this particular management company uses a cabinet company, nothing high-end, but still better than most. The resident in this story has a history of causing problems, not only for his neighbors, but also with management. At this time, the resident's kitchen had flooded because of an old water tank. The maintenance supervisor and a representative from the cabinet company go in to measure up for a new kitchen and arrange an installation date. I happened to be there that day, working on a vacant unit, when the maintenance supervisor calls me, asking if I would mind going over to measure for a countertop that they forgot to get. I was told the resident would be home. No problem. I go over, knock, and introduce myself to the resident as the installer and explain why I was there. While I was there taking measurements, the resident pulls out a catalog and starts telling me that he wants these cabinets with this countertop and these features, pointing and showing me things that were nowhere near cheap. And I'm just thinking to myself that there's no way in hell management is going to approve any of this. When the resident finally stops talking long enough for me to say anything, I inform him that I'm just the installer, and what management orders is what I have to install. With an annoyed look on his face and a somewhat harsh tone in his voice, he shoves the catalog into my hands and tells me to make sure he gets what he picked. I take the measurements and the catalog down to the office to talk to the maintenance supervisor. When he sees the catalog, he tells me that the resident was told that he was not getting anything different from what every unit gets, which was cherry-finished cabinets with bluish-gray tops. I was informed about the installation date, and that the resident would be away on vacation, which is good for me, as there would be no one to get in the way. The day of the installation comes and goes without a problem, and I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. That Friday, I was working on another vacant rehab a few doors down when I started hearing loud screaming, cursing, and banging noises from outside. I popped my head out the door to see the resident throwing broken pieces of the kitchen I had just installed. When he saw me standing there, he started coming towards me, screaming that I installed the wrong stuff and cursing me out. By now, both management and maintenance supervisors were there, and the resident started screaming and cursing them out. This went on for a while, and the cops had to be called when the resident started to take swings at us and ended up on his ass after the maintenance supervisor planted a "This is Sparta" kick in his chest. Management filed an emergency eviction order, and the resident was gone by the end of the month, and I had to reinstall the kitchen all over again. The problem that I run into with most renters is that they don't seem to understand that my customer is the management company or the owner of the rental, and that the renter has little to no say about what I have to do. The next one is an entitled parent story. My fiancée grew up in a very abusive household. Her mother was emotionally, physically, and verbally abusive to her. A key example is when she sneaked laxatives into my fiancé's food as a child whenever she felt that her daughter was getting too pudgy. She also forced my fiancé to stay inside the house for an entire year as a child with no outside social connection. We are visiting my family for the holidays out of state. I am not close with my father, as he basically walked out when I was 10. However, I have tried to reconnect and be civil over the years, so I see him once a year or so around the holidays. We agreed to have dinner with him and his fourth wife, whom he married well into my adulthood, on Christmas Eve. Big mistake. My father's wife started asking my fiancé about her family, to which my fiancé said that she is not close to them. Other than one dinner we had with them a few months ago, which was due to a complex situation, not a desire to see them, she hasn't seen her parents in 4-5 years. I have previously told my father and his wife, on more than one occasion, that her parents were abusive and she does not see them. His wife doubles down, saying how it must have been nice to reconnect and that it's nice that I got to meet them. My father made a couple of similar comments, as well as calling my fiancée his daughter-to-be and referring to her as the daughter his fourth wife never had. My fiancée excused herself and went to the bathroom to cry. My father's wife then tells me, "It's really nice you got to meet her parents." I told them, "Not really. They abused the woman who is going to be my wife and caused her immense pain. I could have gone a lifetime without meeting them, but I will always be there to support her. This is a very sensitive subject, and we would prefer not to talk about it." My father then chimes in with, "Well, I'm sure we'll meet them at the wedding." "No, you won't, father. Not only because her parents are not invited to the wedding, but also because you've demonstrated a complete lack of respect for our boundaries, have been oblivious to the pain your wife is causing my wife-to-be, and are actively causing my fiancé emotional pain. Your wife is now uninvited, and you very likely are as well. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.